Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join me on learning more about GW student employment and how to be onboarded as a student employee. So, as you can see from the title of this presentation is From Point A to Point Z, How to Be Onboarded as a Student Employee, presented by me. My name is Bashar Fakri. I'm the Student Employment Associate for Student Employment here at GW. And I'm a part of the Center for Career Services. My position specializes in trainings, as well as project management, and further resource development for hiring managers, supervisors, student employees, and so forth. I want to go ahead and take the time once again to thank you for taking the time out of your day to attend. And then just a couple of housekeeping items before we go ahead and enter the presentation. So there is, as you have noticed, there is a Q&A feature as well as the chat. Feel free to go ahead and submit any questions that you have throughout the presentation. However, I will be answering them at the end of the presentation. So if you're looking at a slide and a question pops up in your mind, feel free to go ahead and send it. Just be aware that I probably won't get to it until towards the end of the presentation. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and review the agenda for today. So in today's session, we will be discussing applying to a position, reaching out to employers and opportunities, reviewing the onboarding process and what to bring, the timeline expectations of when you should expect to start working after going through the process, and when to begin working. So once again, we ask that if you have any questions during the webinar to please reserve them towards the end, or feel free to reach out to email us directly at gwse@gw.edu afterwards if you have any questions. All right, so knowledge and action is an important part of the GW experience. And with student employment positions, you'll have many opportunities to apply what you are learning and further refine the skills that will broaden your development, making you stand out to future employers when you start applying. So as part of your professional development, please carefully consider and choose opportunities and/or experiences that will develop your professional skills and competencies. And each position focuses on different key competencies, and they're listed within the job posting. So when you go ahead and create your application in our applicant tracking system portal, you'll be able to go ahead and start reviewing job postings. And under each job posting, there are these competencies. It might not have all of them. It might have some. Some positions may have only two. It really just depends on the type of position you're applying for. But to briefly go over some of the ones that are available, we have critical thinking, we have leadership, we have inclusion, we have technology and data, career development, professionalism, teamwork, and communication. So, for example, if you are going into a field that really prioritizes learning about technology and data, as well as critical thinking, then you might want to look for positions that focus on these professional competencies more so than others. However, every position is vitalized by these professional competencies. So definitely don't make it your end all be all for when applying for positions. It's just to be a guide for when you start building your resume, reviewing transferable skills, and what's going to stand out to employers when you start applying to positions in the future. So, with that being said, I wanted to go ahead and take some time to go over the application workflow. So, this is a complete journey from applying to a position to being hired, but we're going to go ahead and dissect these steps a lot more later on in the presentation. So to start off, after you've created your applicant portal or your applicant profile, sorry, you want to go ahead and start applying to a position. So identify and apply to a position through our student talent management system, and I will go over what that website looks like in a bit. And then step two, you would receive an interview if if your application were to be selected to move forward in the workflow process. So a supervisor or a hiring manager may reach out to you in regards to scheduling an interview with you. Once they reach out, you would go ahead and establish what your schedule may look like, or the expectations you may have, or any questions that you want to engage with the supervisor or hiring manager with. And then if everything goes well and they're interested in moving forward with your application, then they'll go ahead and request us to send you an offer letter. So you would go ahead and sign your offer letter once you receive it. And then you move over into a background check if it's applicable. And once again, I'll be going over these steps a lot more in depth later on in the presentation. This is just a brief overview. And so you would go over your background check if applicable once again. So if needed, a background check email will be sent to you for you to complete. And then if completed and successfully passed, we would then assign you your onboarding. So that your complete onboarding checklist will be assigned to you, which includes your I-9 appointments, and we'll get into that later. And then you will receive a hire notification. So once you receive the hire notification, and of course, after checking in GWeb for the start date of your position, contact your supervisor regarding your first days of work. So, with a very brief overview of what the application workflow looks like, let's go ahead and start with finding a job, right? So, this page may look familiar. On the top left section, there's a URL that you can go ahead and click or type in, and it will take you to this page. And so it's finding a job. It has resources for student employees, employers, full-time, part-time staff, and so forth. But you, at this point, want to focus on the left-hand side column where it says to create an account. So oftentimes students may be confused that when they do come to GW, they think their account is already set up. It's something like Handshake or what it may be. But that is not the case. You need to create your account from scratch with us. So after you go ahead and click on create an account, it will immediately prompt you to fill out your information. And once you've completed your applicant profile, you'll be able to start applying to positions. So we have non-federal work study positions, on-campus federal work study positions, off-campus federal work study positions, and so forth. And if you want a little bit of an overview over what these different positions are, we do have previous webinars that do go over those, so feel free to check out our YouTube channel with already pre-existing recordings of those. I do want to preface this as we go into the next couple of slides and the remainder of this presentation, that some slides are very text heavy, and the reason why it's that way is so if you choose to review this information later down the line, you don't have to search for notes, or the slides might not contain all the information that I am saying currently. And so just for your own peace of mind, it's all displayed for you as I speak through it. So let's go ahead and dissect into applying to a position, right? So how to submit your application. So you want to start out with your contact information, and there will be prompts for all of these for you to insert when you begin your application. So your contact information, your first and last name, your GWID, your email address, your local address. You can also use your dorm room's address if your local address is pretty far away, so you don't confuse hiring managers, and then your phone number and so forth. Then you want to include your general information. So select student citizen type, domestic or international, for example. But as a note, hiring managers will not be able to see this information. It's just for us. So when we assign your onboarding checklist, we know what type of I-9 you need to complete. Is it like for those that are F1 visa students, do they need their I-20s and I-94s, or are you a domestic student that just needs their passport? So that's the reason why we request that information at the time of you applying. And then your previous experience, so your most recent experience added starting with education, then professional, and then volunteer and leadership experience. And then your skills and certifications, as well as your availability. So the technical and transferable skills that you've gained throughout your time, certifications, and most importantly, your availability, which is your class schedule. Now, before I go into the other side of the requirements, I know at first sight you may think, oh my God, this is so much information to submit per application. Well, the good news is that a lot of this information, once you've kind of put it in once, it will save on your applicant profile. So as you start to apply to multiple positions, a lot of this type of information is kind of just fed into your application or into your other applications. So you don't have to worry about putting all of that information in again and again and again. It's mostly going to be application documents, supplemental questions, certifications, and so forth. So that's kind of what you need to freshen up. But that doesn't mean that if you need to change that information, you can't access it. Every application, it's going to give you the ability to change any of the information that is preloaded from your previous applications. So that's great. And then you want to go ahead and submit your application documents. So that's your resume, your cover letter, your class schedule, your federal work study program statement, an unofficial transcript, a writing sample, a license certifications, and so forth. Um, Keep in mind that not every position is going to require you to submit all these things, or if any. Some applications or some jobs just require you to submit a resume and a cover letter. Some jobs only require you to submit a resume. However, on the flip hand side, there are jobs that will require you to submit a resume, a cover letter, a transcript, and a writing sample. Maybe because you're going to be TAing students and they need to see, all of that information. Or you're going to be dealing with sensitive information, so they want to know, what um, your resume looks like, or your licenses, or your writing samples. Or, for example, let's say that it's a federal work study position, then it's going to require you to submit your federal work study program statement letter. So these are just examples of the types of application material that hiring managers may request. They might not request all of them, and they may not request any of them, but just to keep this in mind for when you start applying. And it will tell you if it's required or if it's optional, although I always recommend if it's something that is optional in order to stand out to your employers, submit one anyway, such as a cover letter, for example. And then supplemental questions. So answer any questions that appear by typing your response directly in the text box provided or checking something. If no questions appear, there are no supplemental questions for this position. So sometimes you'll apply to a position and the hiring managers might just ask additional questions just to reiterate, like, are you available for this? And you would select yes or you would select no. Are you able to perform these tasks? Then you'd say yes or no, depending on your answers and so forth. So those supplemental questions help hiring managers just understand more your availability and your interest in the position. And then certifications. Full transparency, I often don't see certifications being requested unless if it's a position like lifeguarding where, they might need, your lifeguarding license or your CPR certifications and so forth. So certifications aren't as needed in terms of an upload, but I don't want you to be confused with certifying your application, which is what we're talking about. So read the provided statement carefully when you're trying to submit your application, and then there's going to be a checkbox to verify and certify. So then you would enter your initials in the box provided, then you would click submit this application to apply for the position. And then you would submit your application. So upon submitting the application, a message will appear on your screen, providing you with a confirmation code, and you will also receive an email confirmation. Now, you're probably wondering what's next, but I just want to go over a couple of important reminders. So, this is for students primarily. So, student applicants often need to wait at least 2 weeks to hear back from hiring managers regarding their applications. So, this is in regards to are they interested in your application? Have they reviewed your application and so forth? And so hiring managers must collect and review all applications and coordinate with other decision makers. And so this is to ensure the process is fair, consistent, and efficient when reviewing applications. So if you don't hear back from a hiring manager immediately, don't be nervous. It just takes a lot of time because you're not the only individual, possibility-wise, you're not the only individual that is waiting for a response or that is reaching out. And so that leads me into my next point. Hiring managers may not respond to every email about student applications because they often receive a very high volume of emails from multiple candidates. Responding individual to each inquiry can take significant time away from reviewing applications and coordinating interviews. Managers may focus on sending updates only at key stages or to select applicants. And by key stages, I mean after they've interviewed you, and let's say they don't want to pursue with your application moving forward, they'll reach out to you and let you know. And so if you are the type of individual that uh, immediately wants to send an email after you've ended or after you've submitted your application because some individual in your past has told you that's best practice, I do encourage you to shift that way of thinking, especially when it comes to hiring managers on campus, because you just may not receive a response, and that's full transparency. It's not to say that they're not interested in your application. It's just currently they're probably going through and sifting through a lot of applications to see what fits best with their department as they review the candidates. And so student applicants should avoid applying to only one or two positions. And this is primarily because campus hiring is extremely competitive. There's no guarantee they'll be selected or even hear back quickly when it comes to students applying. So, by applying to multiple positions that align with your skills, interests, and availability, and I want to reiterate that, by applying to multiple positions that specifically align with your skills, interests, and availability, students increase their chances of securing a role, gain flexibility in options, and avoid unnecessary delays in their job search. So it's a happy medium, right? You don't just want to apply to one or two, but you also don't want to mass apply to over 200 positions just because you want to see what sticks on the wall. It's going to serve you less in terms of your resumes not being up to par with specific position descriptions or your cover letter being very generic so you can mass apply. Hiring managers notice this and they are very quick to just disregard your application because of that. Just to put that out there. So, signing your offer letter. If you are accepted into a student position, the department hiring you will submit information to student employment. And so after this happens and it has been approved, you will receive an offer letter from student employment via email. And you need to e-sign the offer letter in order to formally accept the position and begin the hiring process. Now, there are two ways to sign your offer letter through the email that you received directly. So open the email notification that you have received, and then you would click the link provided to go directly to the offer letter. And then after doing so, you'll be able to digitally sign your offer letter. Or if you have not received the email, because sometimes students will put incorrect emails in their email box when they're submitting applications. And so it will just be a dead email and the email will be bounced back, and we have no recollection or a place to find your actual email. So within the applicant user guide, there are instructions on how to directly sign your offer letter in the applicant portal. So you can skip the email. If you do not receive the email notification once again and should have, or you've misplaced it, you can also access the offer letter through your applications once logged in. And then under your completed applications, under the position that you are being hired into, the offer letter link will appear. And once you open the offer letter, you just enter your full name as it appears on your offer letter and then just hit submit. Once you've done so, you've signed your offer letter successfully. Now you're probably thinking, what does this email look like? And it's this slide. So text is a little bit small, but I encourage you, once you have access to these slides, to kind of expand it. So it will say, congratulations on your position with blank. So please click below to carefully read the offer letter and accept or sign the letter through your applicant portal. And so there will be in that highlighted text, in the highlighted yellow area, it will show you a link to directly click on to sign your offer letter, as well as a link right underneath it to access the student user guide, and then more information about federal work study, future notifications, and then completing different checks like the background checks if needed, or who to contact if you are having issues moving forward with your application. Now, after you've signed the offer letter, and like mentioned before, you might need to do a background check. And so, if a background check is required for your position, you will receive a background check invitation from GWHR via Sterling Systems. So please monitor your GW email account after signing the offer letter to receive this email notice. And just to note, this will not be immediate. It may take some time. So it's not once you sign your offer letter, you'll receive the background check email. We have to send it to HR, and then HR takes some time to send it to you. So just keep an eye out. And if you haven't received a background check, but you know for a fact that you need one, just reach out to what's it called? bgcheck@gw.edu, or directly to us, which is preferable, gwse@gw.edu. To complete the background check, there are instructions provided to you via email. However, if you have any questions or issues with the background check specifically, like how can I answer this question? I don't have this information available to me at the moment. Please contact vgcheck@gw.edu because student employment will not be able to assist you as much. And this is what the email is going to look like if you are required to complete a background check and an email is sent to you. So it's going to be a contract with First Advantage to perform a background check investigation. And then in the middle of the email, there's going to be a hyperlinked link that says click here to begin. And you would just go ahead and start your background check process there. Now, logging into employee records and accessing your onboarding checklist. So at this point, we have covered how to sign your offer letter and how to complete your background check. Once those are done, student employment on our end, we go ahead and assign you your onboarding checklist. Now, if you don't have access to your applicant user guide, here's a brief overview of the instructions on how to log into employee records. So you would look out for an email instructing you to log into employee records to begin your onboarding process. You would then log into your applicant portal. So it's the same page and account you used when submitting your application. And then on the left-hand side, you will see a tab appeared called Employee Records, and there's an arrow pointing to it directly under the logout button. And then once it's clicked, you will it will be automatically directing you to the onboarding checklist that's assigned in Employee Records. Now, if the tab does not appear, or you receive an error message in your applicant portal, or there are no tasks when you log in, please reach out directly to us at gwse@gw.edu. We'll be able to either fix your access, assign you a new checklist, or kind of do a little bit more of a deep dive in regards to some of the technical issues you may be facing. Now, to go over what does that checklist look like? So the student employment onboarding checklist for new hires is going to look something like this. And so there's going to be stuff regarding tax forms, how to clock in, your biweekly payroll calendar, the student employee email address, how to set that up, time off guide, and so forth. But as you can see, what's starred right now is probably one of the most important tasks for you to, if not the most important task, for you to complete in order for you to start working legally. So, so the I-9 instructions and document upload is a very important key part, once again, on how to complete your hiring process. Now, if you don't know what the I-9 instructions and document upload is referring to, I will go over that in a couple of slides, but just be aware of it for now. So the student employee onboarding process, you're able to access employee records, it's going to look something like this. So at first you want to check your employee records access. So make sure your access is working in the tab that was mentioned prior. And if it doesn't or it disappears, reach out directly to us at gwse@gw.edu. You want to review the professional expectations. So take some time to review the professional expectations for student employees prior to, starting on reviewing the rest of the information. And then you want to go ahead and review clocking in and how to clock out, as well as the payroll calendar and time off. So this information is really helpful to kind of give you a sense of the type of benefits you have, how to clock in and who to refer to, and then the payroll calendar because it provides you specific dates for when you start getting paid. Um, and specifically how to request time off if you are using your sick leave. And then the I-9 appointment completion notices, so complete part one and part two of your I-9 process. Part one is done virtually, part two is done in person with our office, but I will get to that later. And then you want to have access to your student employee email address. So review how to obtain your student employee email address. Questions regarding this should be sent to GWIT specifically because we do not manage the employee email address authentication or access to it. So definitely reach out to IT if you're having issues in doing so. And then your federal state taxes and direct deposit. So you want to log into GWeb 48 to 72 hours after the start of your position, which is located in GWeb, by the way, to submit these forms. So if you have any questions regarding these forms, please contact payroll services directly. Student employment and pretty much every other location on campus cannot assist you with tax forms because we're not licensed tax accountants and so forth. So although our hands are tied in that area, we do recommend you reach out to payroll services or the tax department to kind of have more support regarding those forms. And then you should be hired. But like I mentioned, I want to go over the I-9 forms and instructions document upload because this is a huge key important element for your hire to be processed and for you to legally be able to begin working. So when you have access to your onboarding checklist and employee records, one of the tasks, once again, is going to be the I-9 form instructions and document upload. Each task gives you a full breakdown, a step-by-step process of how to complete part one, how to complete part two, what to upload, and how to sign off. So part one is going to look something like this. So you complete section one using the link that's provided right here, the www.newI9.com. And then there's going to be an employer code for you to submit. Once you submit that employer code, you'll be able to finish part one. Part one consists of you putting in your background information, so your name, your date of birth, things that the Citizenship and Immigration offices here would like to know about. Um, and so once you fill out that information and it's sent over, we'll be able to access it. And then you would complete step two by scheduling an appointment with us. So in the second highlighted line, there's going to be a URL with a link to our Calendly. And you would just go ahead and click on it and schedule an appointment with our office to complete part two of your I-9. And that requires you to come to our office with documentation. And so what that would look like prior to you coming to us with that documentation is for domestic students, right? You want to upload whatever documents you're using when you're filling out part one. So in part one of the I-9, it's going to request you to input information of the documents you're using to prove your employment eligibility. So for domestic students, it could be one from list A or two from list B and C. So, and just to break it down, from my understanding specifically, uh, and when it comes to employment eligibility, you need a document that showcases proof of who you are, so what you look like, as well as proof of eligibility to work in the United States. So are you a citizen? Are you a permanent resident? So when we request, for example, a passport, that serves both purposes because not only are you establishing proof of identity through a passport, but also employment eligibility because it showcases you're a citizen. So those two work hand in hand. That's why we only request one from list A. But let's say you have your driver's license and your social security card, right? So that would be list B and list C. So list B is what showcases actual proof of who you are, and list C is proof of work eligibility. So that's why your license in part B and then your social security card or your birth certificate in part C That's why two documents are required because one showcases proof of who you are and one showcases proof of you being able to work in the United States. And once again, this is for domestic students. You would upload these in the tasks, and then once again, when you complete part two, you will need to bring those documents, but I will get to that later. For international students, it looks a little bit different. So for international students, it requires you to have your F1 visa, your F1 passport, or let me rewind. Your foreign passport, regardless of if you're under F1 or J1 visa status, it does not matter. We need your passport. Then we need, depending if you are an F1 student, we would need your I-94, and then we will need your I-20. And then proof that you have applied for a social security card. So we can go into that information later. I highly recommend if you do fall under this category for social security cards to review one of our previous webinars regarding international student workshops and positions available to them. And that is located on our YouTube channel. A couple of important reminders when completing your I-9 appointment. So complete part one prior to part two. So without completing part one of your I-9, which is once again done online virtually, we cannot process part two, which is your in-person I-9 appointment. And therefore we cannot process your hire and therefore you cannot start your job. So please make sure that you follow all instructions, which is primarily how to complete part one prior to coming to our office. You also want to double check the uploaded documents. So make sure you upload the correct documents you plan to bring during part two of your I-9 appointment. So oftentimes we see students, especially for domestic students who upload their driver's license and their social security card, but they find out that they were able to find their passport. So make sure that you communicate that with us or once again, come to the appointment with the actual documents that you've uploaded to make it easier. And then I know it's a little bit hard to see here because it is hyperlinked, but you want to go ahead and review the acceptable documents. I just mentioned a few of the plethora of acceptable documents that are under the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services website. So you can go ahead and click that on your own accord once these slides are able to go live. And then you'll be able to see more information on the types of acceptable documents you can upload and bring to complete your appointment. Which leads me on to probably the most important reminder. Physical documents are the only documents that we are able to accept when completing your I-9 appointment. And this is why we're telling you in advance prior to those that are able to come on campus, since you still might have access to them. So we do not accept any photos, scans, or digital copies of any documentation when completing part two of your I-9. So please make sure to bring your physical documents, such as your passport, for us to be able to complete your appointment. And I just want to once again emphasize, we do not accept any photos, scans, or digital copies of documentation when completing part two of your I-9. We will ask you to either have your passport shipped or your other types of documentations shipped if you are not able to, go to your dorm and pick those up, or your parents need to send it over to you. If you want your I-9 to be processed, there really isn't any other way. So if you are still at home and you have access to those documents prior to coming and you're planning on applying to an on-campus job, make sure to bring one of them or two of them, depending on what you're eligible for. Now, as I said, once you've completed your I-9 and you're hired and all this kind of stuff, you're most likely done, right? Well, almost. And I'll go over a couple of important reminders prior to the end of this presentation, and then we can go ahead and go into the questions that we may have. So, about the hire complete notification example. So you're going to receive a congratulations, your student hire for the position listed below is complete. And it's going to basically let you know that, hey, you're hired. Your hire is completed on our end. You can go ahead and get in touch with your supervisor. I want to emphasize that this hire complete notification is not a green light for you to begin working. And the reason why I say that is for a couple of things. One, your hire may be completed in advance. So let's say your hire, and this is made by the supervisor and the hiring manager at the time of you applying. So let's say they have scheduled you for your first days or for the position to go live September 3rd, for example, but it's still August 20th, and they're asking you to start working. Well, in GWeb, it will tell you when you're able to start working after you've received this email. So once you've received this email and we've processed it in GWeb, go ahead and log in about like 24 to 48 hours after this email. And then in GWeb, it will tell you your start date. It will tell you when you're able to start working officially. Once you see that date, get in contact with your supervisor or whoever is managing this position and who you're going to be speaking to. And so once you're getting in contact with them about your hiring notification as well as the start date in GWeb, you guys can coordinate together on your first days in regards to when to start. So I just want to go over some final important reminders, and then we'll go ahead and into the questions. So I know it's a block of text, but we'll go over it, and that way you don't have to look for the notes at the time of reviewing this presentation. So it is very important to allow 2 to 5 business days after completing your I-9 appointment for our team to process your hire. And I just want to reiterate this. Please allow 2 to 5 business days after completing your I-9 appointment. And no, weekends do not count as business days. Please do not hit us up on a Saturday. You will not receive a response. I guarantee you. So the hiring process is not instantaneous, and once the I-9 is completed, our staff must verify documents, enter information in the system, and process your hire with the university. This processing time ensures all legal and university requirements are met prior to your first days in working. So once you've completed that, you and your supervisor will receive an email notifying you of your hire completion. I just want to reiterate, it is very important to review your start date in GWeb prior to working at all. You must contact your supervisor first. If you have not received this email or don't see your position in GWeb or a start date, you are not hired yet and should not be working at all. And this includes onboarding, any trainings, and or duties assigned. If, for example, there's a discrepancy with your hiring manager supervisor and they're really egging you on, shoot us an email. Let us know that you're being pressured to start even though you don't see anything, and we will go ahead and reach out to the department in regards to some of the confusion that may be, existing in regards to your start date. And then finally, clocking in on your first days. So you should have no issue clocking in on your first day if your hire was processed and completed prior to your first day of working, as well as having received your hired notification with your start date assigned in GWeb. But if your hire was processed and you received the email notification during your first day of work, you will not be able to clock in. So you will need to contact your supervisor and have a manual timesheet filled out for the hours that you were not able to clock in for. And then if you begin working prior to your start date in GWeb, this may result in a delay in payment due to your hours not being clocked in. So I just really want to emphasize for both hiring managers, supervisors, and as well specifically for student employees, you really want to make sure that you check the start date in GWeb prior to you starting, or else a plethora of issues moving forward may occur. All right, so I know once again these links are a little are blending into the background, but our resource links are located here. So these student employment information sessions and events. So if you go ahead and click on that link once it's sent out, it will take you to the page to sign up for the remaining webinars that we have. We have some incredible webinars that are coming up. Usually during the summer, we have our webinars on keys to getting on campus job, as well as a federal work study program overview, our international workshops as well. So that is all, it's already been recorded and the slides are already, the virtual webinars are already on our YouTube channels. So you can go ahead and review that information if there are specific questions that are geared more towards All right, well, what are the actual positions? Or how can I contact a supervisor and so forth? So there are different webinars for those. This is just briefly or specifically going over how to be onboarded and what that onboarded process looks like. And then we have the student position. So you just go ahead and click on it and then you review the available student positions. And then we have resources for student employees. So that is the guides as well as templates and so forth. And then important contacts and resources for student employees. So that may be whether it's payroll, HR, timekeeping, and so forth.